Serious, what are some cryptid/ghost/unexplained stories you'd be willing to share? One afternoon I was at work. I walked past a room with a window in the door and automatically glanced in the window. There was a woman standing in the room. Except there are only 3 people in the building and the other 2 were in the office behind me. I took a couple steps, realized what I had just seen, and backed up quickly, but by the time I got back to the window the room was empty. There was only one door and when I opened it the room was empty. At the same building, a co-worker was telling me that she was in the office right around the corner from that same room. She couldn't see the door but she could see the shadow of the door on the floor as it slowly opened and closed. She was the only one in the building at the time and she refused to check. I arrived about an hour later and she asked me to check the door and it was still locked. I worked there about 3 years and every single one of us had stories. We heard voices in empty rooms. Once we were sitting in the office and we heard somebody breathing in an empty corner. It was common to be in one of the rooms and think somebody had just walked into the room, only to look up and find that the room was empty except for you. I had one manager who scoffed at all of our stories. She did not believe us when we told her there was something fairly benign but creepy in the building. We were sitting in the office. She scoffed and loudly said, "If there's anything in here, prove it." We all held our breath, kind of nervous, a bit scared but also curious. And just about the time my manager was getting that look on her face that said, "Ha, told you so," something was thrown out in the hallway. It took us several minutes to work up the courage before going to check and finding that a book that normally sat on a bookshelf near the front door had somehow gone from that bookshelf around the corner and halfway down the hallway. The manager never talked about it and quit shortly after that. I've since quit also. But last I heard they were still hearing voices and seeing shadows in the building. When I was 7 years old, my grandma was in the hospital dying. At the time my family was strapped for cash and my mom was pregnant. So only my dad went to California where she lived to see her before she died. The day that she died, we got a phone call from her with her wanting to talk to each of us saying how much she loved us. A few hours later, we got a call from family members saying that she had passed away. When we told them that we had just received a call from her a few hours prior, everybody was in disbelief, saying that she had been laying unconscious in the hospital bed all day and she could have never called, yet alone been able to articulate her thoughts to us. To this day we have no idea how she called us and I don't think we ever will. Unexplained story here. So I was walking home from college one afternoon. It's about a 2-mile walk between home and college. I'm on the outskirts of the town center and entering a busy neighborhood and everything seems normal until I start getting a creepy feeling, like I was being watched or something. So I look around and what do I find? Literally every person looking at me and watching me as I go past them. Even the people driving were looking at me as they went past. Like, there was this one guy who was turning the corner to come onto the road I was about to cross. And he was legit leaning over in his seat, staring at me as he drive around this corner. Happened for the entire way home but hasn't happened since. Was super freaked out. Didn't tell my family or friends cause they would think I'm crazy. And y'all out there saying this world ain't a simulation. They weren't staring at you. They were staring at what was following behind you. I shared this on Reddit a couple of times. I'll make it short this time. 6 or so years ago weird speep started happening in my mother's apartment. I lived there alone, she was lived with her BF but kept the apartment anyway. The door to my bedroom would open or close on its own. At some point in the night, it would close or open at random intervals, with the door handle moving and all that. And not like slowly. Sometimes it would full on slam shut or open. I tried everything. closing all the windows to see if maybe it was the wind. Nope. Seeing if there was anyone else in the room. Never found anybody, plus the room on the other side was empty except for a wardrobe. Hell. It even happened more than a few times in front of a friend. The friend in question also told me my lamp started to switch on and off when I was sleeping. Not like in the movies where the lamp malfunctions. She said it was like it was turning on, then off, then on, etc. Toward the end of this, the sofa that was right beside the door moved by itself while I was on it. In the middle of the night, while I was on Skype on camera, the door kept opening and closing a few times a night for a few days, then it stopped. Also, I kept having sleep paralysis with visual and auditory hallucination at the time, lol. I honestly could have thought I was simply going crazy. But I had eyewitnesses. Never understood what happened this week. Never happened again. I grew up in an old house and my family definitely experienced events that were hard to explain. Besides all the usual noises and occasionally hearing your name being spoken. Here's the top 2 weirdest things. 1. My brother and I were teens. Eating dinner in the kitchen. There was a glass of water on the counter. We heard a noise where the glass was and both looked toward it and we swore we saw it move an inch. As we were still looking and discussing it, the glass flew several feet across the counter and smashed onto the floor. 2. Once when I was in college and I was home for holidays, I was in the kitchen getting food prepared. I was home alone at that point and my brother was due home at any moment. I heard the front door open and close. I called out hello to my brother and heard nothing back. Then I saw a shadow pass by the kitchen into the hallway and I assumed my brother was being rude, so I followed and kept calling hello. I saw the shadow again turning another corner toward my brother's bedroom. I saw my brother's door closing. At this point I was calling out about what a jerk he was because we hadn't seen each other in months. I pushed the bedroom door open and uttered some insults, haha, and the room, as well as the whole house, was empty. That was super chilling. I really had seen someone moving through the house. Flash forward 15 years later, and when my husband and I bought an oldish house built in 1870, I was up in the 3rd floor arranging boxes and I heard a very clear and very polite woman's voice say, "Well, hello there. Never saw or heard anything in this house since." It's quite short. I chose a stall next to a stall that was used by someone with brown leather shoes. I had no toilet paper, so after some time I asked the guy next to me if he can send me a few. He moved his foot and handed it. His hand looked weirdly pale blue and was cold to the touch. I took the tissues and finished up and left the stall quickly. I was shocked to see that the stall next to me was empty. All that was there was a pair of brown leather shoes. I swear I have no explanation. I still think it was just a prank or something, but I just don't know how. My grandpa lived in an extremely rural, undeveloped area in the 40s, 50s when this occurred. Every time he would walk to school in the early morning, it would be pitch black, especially in the winter. There was this huge, old, unoccupied house that he'd walk by each morning. And each morning he'd see the entire house light up as if there were automatic lights or someone inside flipping all the light switches. The thing was, it was an ancient house in which no one lived. But more important, electric lights in every room weren't a widespread thing where he lived, even in houses with living occupants. Another one, my dad, his 2 brothers, and his parents. His father was the grandpa who walked by the haunted house, had their share of poverty at certain points in my dad's childhood, to the point where my grandpa ate shortening and cucumber sandwiches to save money, to the point where the family went fishing in the nearby lake so they could have dinner. Which takes us into our next story. They were fishing for a good while with no bites. Suddenly, this random man appeared with a tiny fishing box set up right next to them and started to fish. My grandpa would always emphasize how small the fishing box was because he'd say the man took out a bucket, bait, tackle, etc. from it, like he was Mary Poppins. He very quickly pulled in a lot of fish. Then, according to my grandpa, he pulled out a big knife and a board, cut and cleaned the fish, pulled out a big box, put the cleaned fish inside, gave the box to my grandpa, and just left. They never saw him again. My grandparents and my dad think it was Jesus. I don't know what my uncles think. I've never talked to them about it. Not sure of the veracity of these stories. But at least with the second one there were 3 people who very earnestly told me the same story.